Namaste Nrsimhaya. Namaste Nrsimhaya. Prahlada Lada Dayine. Prahlada Lada Dayine. Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha. Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha. Yato yato yamitato Nrsimha. Yato 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 yamitato Nrsimha. Yato yato Bahir Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsimha Mading Sharanam Prapadye. Nrsimha Mading Nrsimha Mading Sharanam Prapadye. Namaste Nrsimhaya. Prahlada Lada Dayine. Prahlada Lada Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha. Ito Yato yato yamitato Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsimha Nrsimha Mading Sharanam Prapadye. Nrsimha Mading Sharanam Prapadye. Tava Kara Kamala Hare Nakam Adhuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam. Keshavadita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jaya Jagadish Hare. Tavaka Kavacha Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavajita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Kavakara Kamaravare Nakama Dutta Singha Varita Hiranyakashipu Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Nrsimha Dev Nrsimha Dev Nrsimha Dev Jaya Nrsimha Dev Jaya Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Bhakta Prahlad, Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, Jaya. Nrsimha Bhagavan ki, Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Go Premanandi. So, as you're probably aware that the bhajan we just sung, the last stanza is from Gita Govinda, from the Dasavatar Stotra. And its translation is, O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of half man, half lion, all glories to you. Just as one can easily crush a wasp between one's fingernails, so in the same way, the body of the wasp-like demon Hiranyakashipu has been ripped apart by the wonderful pointed nails on your beautiful lotus hands. And it's interesting in this prayer how Jayadev to Goswami, he's describing how easily Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, even though he's a very, very powerful demon. Actually, he's often referred to as the Adi Daitya, the original demon, or the first of the demons, and the most powerful. And he was considering himself to be invincible, yet Nrsimhadev killed him so easily. There's another prayer I just want to recite. Om Namo Bhagavate Nrsimhaya Namastejas Tejase Abhibhava Vajranaka Vajradangsa Kamasham Randaraya Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Atmani Bhujista Om Trom. This is from the 5th canto. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possess nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activities in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. This is a prayer offered by Prahlad Maharaj to Nrsimhadev. So, as we know, Nrsimha CATURDASI is the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. And Nrsimhadev is often referred to as Lord Krishna's half-man, half-lion incarnation. And one of the significances of Nrsimhadev for devotees is he removes all obstacles on the path of the devotion out of his compassion upon the Vaishnavas. And it's interesting, I remember years ago attending a Brahma Samhita seminar given by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. And there's that one verse in the Brahma Samhita that talks about Ganesh, and it talks about the tumuli on his head. So Maharaj was explaining that actually, the tumuli means the lumps on, you see either side of an elephant's head, they've got these lumps. So he was saying that the Lord's feet rest on those tumuli, and then he asked the devotees, and whose feet are they? And no one knew it. It was actually Lord Nrsimha's feet. So Lord Nrsimha's feet are resting on the head of Ganesh. Yeah. And he's always striving to remove, or always removing the obstacles on the path of devotion for the devotees. And sometimes it's also referred to as Nrsimha Jayanti, Jayanti meaning victory, because as we know on this day, that Nrsimha destroyed the demon Hiranyakashipu. But not only was it his victory, but it's also a victory for the devotees, because it symbolizes the devotee overcoming the obstacles, material obstacles. So it's a very important day. And this is, as we know, it's the 14th day of the Gaurapaksha of the month of Madhusudan, or I guess in Vedic sort of way of describing the month, it's called Vaishak, which is April, May. So I just wanted to look sort of why Krishna descends. As we know in the Bhagavad Gita, it describes Paritanaya Saranam Vinachaya Chaduskritam Dharma Sangstapanataya Samba Vami Yuge Yuge. He explains that to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself descend millennium after millennium. And when Krishna is saying this to Arjuna, we see that Krishna has a human-like form. And so the common tendency is to think that, but Krishna is talking about a human-like form, but if you look at the pictures in Nrsimha, it doesn't look very human-like at all. He's got these, lion's mane, head, teeth, nails, everything, and very, very ferocious, very, very, for most people, a very, very fearsome form of the Lord. And the tendency and so people are thinking, well, but how can that be God? But the tendency we have is because of our conditioned nature, or at least I can talk from my perspective, because of conditioned nature, is I tend to project my conditioning upon my understandings. And I think we all do this to some extent. And so we can understand that because, with this form, we are very much confined by time and space. This body has certain capacity. It's going to, last for a certain amount of time in this material world. But the Lord is not restricted in any way like that. He's not restricted by time, space, or anything. There's nothing He can't do. There's no other material parameter, or there's no material parameter that can limit the Lord. He is completely unlimited. And He can appear in any species of life in all circumstances. And He does so, and He performs the most wonderful activities. Just like we see up here, we've got this picture of Govardhana, where He's lifting Govardhana. A 7-year-old boy, he lifts this massive mountain, which right now is 22 kilometers around, but it was much bigger when he 5,000 years ago, because it's shrinking every day, the size of a mustard seed. And so he lifted this massive mountain, held it aloft on the fingertip of his little pinky on his left hand for 7 days. And it was nothing for him to do that. It wasn't very, very difficult at all. We can understand also that when the Lord manifests His form as Anantashesh, He keeps all the universes on His hood. And then so He's so powerful and they're so insignificant, He doesn't even feel them. He doesn't even know they're there. And that's not even a direct form of Krishna. That's the Shaktavesh avatar that's doing that. So just by his Shakti, he's blessing a jiva to hold all the universes on his head. And so powerful is that Shakti that the personality of Anantashesh doesn't even know they're there. So very, very powerful personality. And Prahlad Maharaj describes that the Lord incarnates in all species of life, even though this is inconceivable to the human brain. We see in the Bhagavatam there's 8 million, or the scriptures describe 8,400,000 species. So Krishna appears in every one of those species, but the human brain cannot conceive this. I mean, how can you conceive of it just seems like really contradictory, the idea of a cockroach incarnation of Krishna. But he does so, he incarnates in all these different species to bring the jiva back, to elevate the jiva in God consciousness and ultimately to bring them back to Krishna, to the spiritual realm. So, yeah. And the Lord's pastimes are differentiated according to the appreciating capacity of the different types of bodies of the living entities. So in each body, we have different capacity to understand things. So Krishna appears in these forms according to the capacity of the living entity to understand. And we see sometimes Prabhupada will describe, in primitive civilizations, they will see great things, like great trees or great mountains or great rivers as representations of God, because that's their capacity to understand. And we see also in the Gita, Krishna describes of denizens of the deep, I'm the shark, of mountains, I'm the mighty Himalayas, and he gives all these different descriptions of how his vibhuti or his potencies are manifested in the material world to help people understand his nature. So, just a little bit of the ontology. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Nrsimha is considered to be an expansion, or swangsa, meaning swa-angsa means his own form, his own limb. And he's an expansion of Krishna's divine form, specifically his anger and his protective aspect. Because we see how he's very, very protective of Prahlad. And not just Prahlad, but of all the devotees. This is the nature of Nrsimha, is he's protective. And it's very much like we see sometimes the analogy is given with Nrsimha, it's just like a mother cat or a mother lion is very protective of its cubs. Ferociously protective, actually. And if anyone tries to go near the cubs, then the lion will kill them. It's very, very protective. So Nrsimha is like that also. So he's this loving, protective feature of Nrsimha. An interesting story is when they were trying to get, because in Mayapur they're regularly being attacked by Muslims, especially after the Gorpanim festival, because the Muslims were thinking, well, millions and millions of dollars are coming in, and so we'll go and rob the Hare Krishnas, the Bideshi Mandir. This wasn't like all the Muslims, just the dacoit types, the Gundas. And so, often after Gorpanim, the campus would get attacked. So they came up with this idea of getting a deity of Nrsimha. But they didn't want to get any deity of Nrsimha. They found out what was the most ferocious form of Nrsimha. And this is the form that's called Sthana, Ugra, Nrsimha. So Sthana meaning the column, Ugra meaning fierce or angry, and Nrsimha. So they want to get this form of Nrsimha just as he bursts out of the column, because that's considered to be his most angry manifestation. So the devotees went on a pilgrimage to South India, and they found out someone who could carve this deity. But then when they revealed to the Stapati what sort of deity they wanted, he said, no, I'm going to carve that deity. That's too dangerous. He was worried about the fearsome nature of Nrsimha. But then he went and asked his guru about it. Apparently he had some dreams and things, and the deity was coming to him in a dream and telling him it was okay and stuff. And then so he went to his guru and he asked him, who's it for? And he said it's for the ISKCON. And he said, that's okay, you can carve him, because this deity will then take a different mood because it's for ISKCON. And we see, like in South India, many of the temples where they have Nrsimha deities are not so opulent, or so they're not sort of prospering so well these days, possibly because of offenses or neglect. And so, the Nrsimha worship can be very, very detrimental if it's not done properly. But because in ISKCON, the dominant mood, especially, well, not just ISKCON, but with Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the dominant mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the mood of Lord Chaitanya. So the deity tends to take that mood of the Sampradaya, rather than this like heavy mood that we see with some of these temples in South India. So the Nrsimha is also what's called a Purna avatar. Purna, or sometimes called Paravasta, meaning he has the full six opulences. So there's according to Laghu Bhagavad-amrita, I think it's the 4th or 5th chapter, I don't remember exactly. But it described the Paravasta forms. There's 3 Paravasta forms. There's Nrsimha, so he possesses this what's that, Aishvarya Samagrasha, Viyasya, Yasyastriya, Jnana Vairagacaya, Saram Bhagavani Tingana. He possesses the six opulences of Krishna or Bhagavan in full. This wealth, strength, fame, knowledge, beauty, wisdom, renunciation. He possesses these things in full. But he has a particular mood or a particular way that's manifested. That's more manifested through the Aishvarya. And you'll see the only person really that has an affectionate relationship, like an overtly affectionate relationship with Nrsimha is Prahlad. And we see how Prahlad, Nrsimha puts his head on Prahlad and he's very affectionate with Prahlad. Whereas everyone else is very much this Aishvarya, they're a little bit fearful. And we see that in the past time, when Nrsimha killed Hiranyakashipu, none of the demigods wanted to approach Nrsimha. They were all too scared of him. Even Lakshmi was too scared because she'd never seen her Lord manifesting such an angry form before. She was actually frightened because he was very, very angry. But Brahma gave Prahlad a garland, and Prahlad, just a little boy, he went and garlanded Nrsimha. He wasn't fearful at all. And we see that Nrsimha also shows affection. And then we see Ramachandra, he's the second of the Purna or the Paravasta forms, and he manifests more of the sweetness. You see his relationships with Sita Devi, with his brothers, with Hanuman and the different monkeys. There's affection there. And then we see with Krishna, he's the final Purna Paravasta form. He fully manifests sweetness, and he's understood to be the complete manifestation of Godhead. And then also he's understood to be Bhaktavatsala. In the Nrsimha, he's Bhaktavatsala, or the protector of his devotees. And he's known for his intense love and protection for his devotees. And we see that there's an interesting story in Prabhupada's, in the Leelamrita, in Prabhupada's pastimes, when he had, I can't remember if it was a stroke or a heart attack, and he was staying up at Stinson's Beach, and it looked like he was actually going to leave his body. And at that point, he taught the devotees Nrsimha prayers. And he asked them to put a picture of Nrsimha on the altar, and then he taught them this prayer, this Namaste Nrsimhaya. And he asked the devotees to pray to Nrsimha to allow him to finish his service. So we see, and there's many different times where Nrsimha has protected his devotees. I remember as a Sankirtan devotee in Melbourne, before we used to head out on Sankirtan, we'd always chant the Nrsimha prayers, seeking Nrsimha's blessings and protection. And devotees commonly take shelter of Nrsimha. And there's also been many different stories that I've heard over the years of how devotees have had direct experience of Nrsimha manifesting his protection in their lives. And also, he's a manifestation of Krishna's mercy, his kripa, shakti. And he appears, his manifestation is Krishna's mercy and compassion towards his devotees. So even though he's a very, very, for a non-devotee, he's a very fearsome-looking form, devotees don't see him like that. Devotees see him as a very compassionate, merciful, kind, protective manifestation of Krishna. But and we see with Krishna, he has 4 arms, or Vishnu has 4 arms, and in his 4 arms he's got Sankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. So for the devotees, the Sankha, the conch, and the Padma, the lotus, he benedicts. We see the story with Dhruva Maharaj, how when Vishnu manifested Dhruva Maharaj, he touched him with his conch, and he was able to recite very, very beautiful prayers, and also the lotus flower. But then he also has the club and the discus or the wheel. These are for the demons. So it's just like also Prabhupada would often describe how with a cat, for the cat, the mother's jaw, or the kitten, the mother's jaw is protection. Picks the kitten up and will take the kitten to safety and things like that. But for the rat, the jaw of the cat is death. So we see Nrsimha manifests the same kind of duality, if you like. For the demon, Nrsimha is very, very fearsome, but for the devotee, Nrsimha is very, very compassionate and merciful. So different manifestations there. And just a bit more on the ontology. Nrsimha is an eternal form of Krishna, existing beyond the cycles of creation and destruction. He's full of knowledge and bliss, jnana, ananda. Nrsimha possesses full knowledge and bliss, being a form of Krishna himself. He's directly a form of Krishna. He's not like you see like so many other forms of Vishnu or Krishna. They're actually expansions, but Nrsimha is understood to be directly a form of Krishna. And he's chit, he's a spiritual form beyond the material realm and composed of pure consciousness. And summarizing that Nrsimha is an eternal, full and complete incarnation of Krishna, manifesting his protective and merciful aspects, and is considered the protector of the devotees and a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. Now, of course, in the description or discussion of Nrsimha and his pastimes, there are two other personalities that are quite prominent. And one of those personalities is Hiranyakashipu, who's the archetypal demon. He's often referred to as the Adidaitya. He's the original demon. And in most fearful personality and most powerful personality. It describes in the 7th canto, he was so powerful that he'd driven all the devatas out of their residences, and he'd taken over all their functions. There was, we understand, for every function there's a devata. For manifesting the seasons, for spring there's one devata, for autumn, for winter, for summer there's different devatas. For making it rain there's a devata. For making the sunshine there's all these things. He took over the function. He drove them all out of their places, and he was so powerful that it was always springtime. It was always, because he liked spring, he didn't like the other seasons, so it was always springtime, out of fear of Hiranyakashipu. And even, there's another story I'll tell in a little while, but he was also very, very proud and puffed up with his capacity, and he considered that Vishnu was inferior to him. There's an interesting story. It's related to, I think it's related to Ravana. And one time Ravana was, when he heard Ram was coming, he was very, very fearful about Ram. So he went down to see his relative, Bali Maharaj. I think it was Ravana. Went down to see his relative, Bali Maharaj. Must be some different demon, I can't remember. Anyhow, so this demon, he was going to be attacked by the Lord, and he went down to see Bali Maharaj in the subterranean heavenly planets. And he said, I'm pretty sure it was Ravana, and he said, look, see over here, this is a mountain of gold. If you can lift this mountain of gold, then I'll come and help you fight. And you can have the mountain too. So he went down and he tried to lift this mountain of gold, and he lifted it up, and his hands got stuck under it. He couldn't get his hands out, so Bali had to help him get his hands out. And he said, stand back and have a look at it and tell me what you think it is. So he stood back and he had a look at this mountain. He said, oh, it looks like an earring. He said, that's right. This is the earring that was knocked off the side of Hiranyaksha's ear by the Lord when he fought him. And this is the same person you want to defeat. And this is the nature of the demons. It's like, even though the information before them is that they cannot defeat this person. Still, this Maya Prahita Jnana, their knowledge is stolen by illusion, still they push ahead. This Pashanapi na Pashati, even though they're seeing it, it's right in front of them. This person killed his brother like that. It was like nothing for him. He just gave him a blow on the side of his head and killed him. Oh, it was just a lucky punch, It's still, all the information, everyone's telling them. The same we see in Kurukshetra. Everyone was telling Duryodhana, you cannot defeat the Pandavas. Krishna is on their side. Krishna is the Supreme Personality. Bhishma, he said, I've cried myself hoarse trying to tell you this. Because of his demoniac nature, he could not see the truth. Pashanapi na pashati. Right in front of his face, he couldn't see it. And so it was the same with Hiranyakashipu. Even though all the learned persons were telling him, that you cannot defeat this person, his own son is telling him. And he's telling your son, you are stupid, you are a fool, you do not know who I am. He's saying, this Vishnu is nothing. I will kill him easily. And we see, if you look at the story, how it evolves, how when at the final stage, when Hiranyakashipu became so angry with Prahlad because Prahlad, whatever opportunity he had, when he's playing with his friends, they wanted to play games and stuff like that. What did Prahlad do? He started to preach to them. He started to tell them about Krishna consciousness and tell them how they should give up these useless activities. This, Komanan Ashya Prakyo Dhamman Bhagavatam and Durabam Manasanjama Tarapiya Dhruv Matatam. The human form of life, it's very, very rare. This is what he's explaining this to his friends. It's very rare. So we should use this human form from the tender age of childhood to practice the activities of Krishna consciousness. And when Hiranyakashipu heard about this, he became infuriated. How could you teach them about my enemy? And so he decided he was going to teach him a lesson. He took out his sword and he said, see this sword? I'm going to cut you in half with this sword. And he smashed it against the pillar. And then Nrsimha burst out from the pillar. And there's many different accounts, but it seems that like when Hiranyakashipu saw this wonderful creature coming out of the pillar, he thought, who's this? And I'm going to kill him. He just always thought that he could kill God. And this is the demoniac mentality, is they're thinking they can kill God. They don't understand that actually God is the creator, God is the origin of everything. They don't, even their own origin, they don't accept that. They're thinking that by their power, this is described in the Gita in the 16th chapter. This, by my power I can conquer everyone. So, he was a very interesting personality. Now, Prahlad is a very different, completely different personality from Hiranyakashipu. And there's a really interesting story in the Nrsimha Purana, in the 41st chapter of Nrsimha Purana. And it seems like the description that's in the Nrsimha Purana is a bit different, a little bit different from what's in the Bhagavatam. So it seems to indicate this is a different kalpa, a different era. And what was happening was Hiranyakashipu went to Kailash to perform tapasya because he wanted to become immortal. And he figured that by worshipping, because he heard that Brahma was the greatest person in the universe, so if I worship him by my tapasya, then he will bless me that I can become immortal. So he went to perform this austerity. He was performing this austerity for many, hundreds of years. Actually, I think it was supposed to be 1,000 years he was performing austerity. But Lord Brahma, he became worried about this. And he's in anxiety, he's thinking, what am I going to do? This guy's really powerful, and this is going to create trouble for me, etc., etc. Narad Muni came to see his father, Lord Brahma. And he asked him what was troubling him. He said, but you worship Narayan, there should be nothing that bothers you at all. And he said, well, but this demon, he's doing this tapasya, and it's going to cause trouble. And Narad Muni said, don't worry, I'll break his meditation. So Narad Muni, he goes there with Parvat Muni, disguised as pigeons. And they sit on a tree nearby Hiranyakashipu. And they chant, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, 3 times. And this breaks Hiranyakashipu's meditation. And he picks up his bow and he goes to kill them, shoot an arrow at them, and they fly away. And then so he took this as like an act of providence, says, okay, my meditation's been broken, I'm going home. So that night, he and his wife are engaged in, intimate exchange. And while they're in this time of intimacy, Hiranyakashipu is describing to Kayadhu, his wife, what happened. Because she's saying, well, why have you come back so soon? You're supposed to be gone for 1,000 years, but you've come back very quickly. And so he described what happened. He said, these birds, I was in meditation, these birds, they stood up, they're on this tree, and they started chanting, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo. And just as he was saying the mantra, he ejaculated and impregnated Kayadhu. Yeah? And so according to this version of the Nrsimha Purana, this is when Kayadhu was impregnated with Prahlad. And this is through the arrangement of Narad Muni, how he caused this great Vaishnava to descend. a very, very interesting story. And no doubt in other Puranas there'll be different descriptions, but these descriptions manifest in different kalpas. It's not one's right and one's wrong. They're just different times, because whenever the Lord appears, he performs certain pastimes, but they're not always the same. Just like we see these demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, regularly come. But it's not always Jai and Vijay. There's only one time it was Jai and Vijay. Other times it's other personalities. This is described by Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think it's in the Adi Leela. It describes how, actually no, I think it's the Adi Leela. It describes how in different kalpas it's different personalities manifest. Yeah? And so the Lord's always performing pastimes. It's described in many places how the pastimes of the Lord are just like waves in a river. You go down the ocean and the waves, they just come and they just come, they just come, they never stop. Every day, tens of thousands of waves come and break upon the shore. So the pastimes of the Lord are just like that. And just like if you look at every single wave, no two waves are the same. They're all different. They've all got their unique features. And also, every manifestation of the Lord, even though it may be the same form, they manifest in different ways. It's described in some scriptures how when Lord Buddha comes, sometimes Kali Yuga is so advanced, he comes as a spaceman in a spaceship. Because if he came, in another way, they may not understand it, but when they see him coming as a spaceman, because, as I was saying before, according to their conditioning, they can understand the pastime of the Lord. So the Lord descends in different ways in order to help people to understand who he is. So, let me see what else I've got here. The Padma Purana also described, Nrsimha is described in many different Puranas. Obviously he's described in the Bhagavat Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, but also in many different Puranas. And Padma Purana also, as I was saying before, it describes how he's got these 6 qualities fully manifest as, full wealth, strength, fame, knowledge, beauty, wisdom, and renunciation. And also there it mentions how the relationship between Krishna and Rama and Nrsimha is like the lamps lit from another lamp. If you take a candle and you light the candle from it, if you look at them, they look the same. Yeah? But the difference is one is the original, and that's Krishna. Yeah? And there's a verse in the Brahma Samhita that says, Dipacha eva hitas santanama bipetya, dipayate vritehetu samana dhamma, yas tadrigeva hicha Vishnu chaya vibhati govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. So the light of one candle is transferred to another candle when you light it, and burns separately. They're completely separate. So you can have hundreds of candles. They all have their separate potency. Yeah? But one of them, and it's the same in the quality, it gives the same amount of light. If the candles are the same, they give the same light. But one is the original candle from which they're all lit, and that is Krishna. This Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. This Govinda, he's the original. Yeah? And of course, as I mentioned before, in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, it describes quite a bit about the Paravasta forms, and particularly describes about Nrsimhadev, Ram, and Krishna. Yeah? And although Nrsimhadev is fierce, and this is his manifestation, he's very, very fierce, he's very gentle with his devotees. And this is from the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. It says, just as a lioness is friendly to her cubs, but she's ferocious with others. You'll see that, like with the lioness. I remember one time we were in South Africa. We went to a place called Namibia, which is kind of off to the west of South Africa. And there's a place there called the Etosha Pan, which is like a wildlife reserve. And we saw this lioness actually, killing a wildebeest. And it's just like, it was such a simple thing for the lion. It's so powerful, just like one swipe with their paw, and they kill the creature. Yet we see with like tiny little cubs, they're very caring and loving. So this is the nature of Nrsimhadev. Also with the devotees, he's very caring and loving. With the non-devotees, he's very, very harsh, or can be very harsh. So, yeah. And in some places it describes the abode of Nrsimhadev as Janaloka, But we see in the Bhagavatam, it mentions, there's a verse from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavatam, the 5th canto, where it says, Lord Nrsimhadev resides in the tract of land known as Harivash. And Prahlad Maharaj, he worships him there. Prahlad Maharaj is described as being a reservoir of all good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the fallen members of his demoniac family. Lord Nrsimhadev is very dear to this exalted personality. Thus Prahlad Maharaj, along with his servants and all the denizens of Harivash, worship Nrsimhadev by chanting the following mantra, which is the mantra I chanted at the beginning. This on the Lord Bhagavate Nrsimhaya. Yeah. So there's many different lessons we can learn from this pastime, especially Prahlad Maharaj with his surrender to Lord Nrsimhadev. And we see one of the things with Prahlad Maharaj is his unswerving devotion. That even though he was put through to so much difficulty by his father, he tried to have him cut to pieces by weapons, he tried to have him poisoned by snakes, he tried to have him boiled in oil, thrown off a cliff onto sharp rocks, drowned in the ocean. So many things we can see there. Yet at no time did he try to protect himself. He just took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every circumstance. And there are many other examples in the Vedic texts which help us, to see this. Just like we see with Draupadi. Initially she tried to protect herself, but then she surrendered to Krishna. She gave up all effort to protect herself and just took shelter of Krishna. And ultimately we see whenever the devotees take shelter of Krishna, then Krishna manifests his protection in one way or another. And also from this story, we can see how Prahlad Maharaj places his devotion to the Lord, or his affection or his ties to the Lord, above his relationship to his family, especially a materialistic family. With devotee families it's a little bit different, but for a materialistic family, he placed his ties to the Lord above his family connections. And many other stories, many other lessons we can learn from this. And of course, obviously with these pastimes are they're not just nice stories we can listen to and that's really nice and he's such a wonderful devotee, but these are actually things we need to apply in our own lives. There's so much we can learn from these different pastimes. Just like we see Hiranyakashipu, he placed all his faith in his own strength. He placed all his faith in material nature and felt that by his endeavor he could conquer any obstacle. By his power, by his personal power, he could conquer any obstacle. But we see he didn't. Ultimately, he was vanquished. And if we place our faith in the material nature, ultimately we'll be vanquished. And so there's no point placing our faith in material nature, because its nature, as it describes in the Gita, is dukhalayam ashashvatam. It's temporary, it's full of misery. If you place your faith in material nature, this is what you'll experience. You'll experience the temporality of the material nature, but also you'll experience misery because of material nature. Just like you might have some nice, device, a phone or an iPad or whatever like that, or something you're very attached to. You might have I remember when I was a kid, I was out playing with my brother in the backyard, and I had this. It was, I can't remember. I think it was like a ceramic sailing ship, like the old-fashioned, square riggers, And I really liked that thing, I was really attached. My mum gave it to me. I was really attached to it. Anyhow, so we were outside. Somehow or other, I don't know why I had it outside, but we had it outside. Maybe I was playing boats or something. And my older brother, he was getting a little bit rough, and he threw something at me. And he hit me in the head, or I think it was a stone or something, hit me in the head. And I got really angry, and I threw the boat at him. And the boat got smashed to pieces, and I was completely devastated. So when you're overcome by these mundane emotions, sometimes you do things which you don't really think through so well, and then the result is misery. But that's the nature of dealing with the material nature, is at some point or other, it always is going to result in misery. And so But Hiranyakashipu couldn't see that, you know. Yeah. And we see with Prahlad Maharaj, the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj, he's had unwavering faith. No matter what he was faced with, his faith was unwavering. He did not give up under any circumstance. And you could imagine, it's like, you know, we face various difficulties in life, but do we face difficulties to the extent that Prahlad Maharaj faced? I mean, how often are we faced with someone trying to chop us up with weapons or throw us off a cliff? But even though he was faced with these different things, he always took shelter of Krishna no matter what. So this unwavering faith, also, what else we got here? Courage. He had so much courage. And his devotion. He was so devoted to the Lord. And you know, we can face challenges, our challenges in life with confidence. You know, if we try to cultivate these same qualities, we can face the challenges in our life with confidence, knowing that Krishna is always with us. Krishna will never desert his devotees. And also we can see that Prahlad Maharaj, he prioritized his spiritual growth. He prioritized, you know, he was always active in preaching Krishna consciousness to his friends. Even when his father threatened him, you know, he said, well, tell me, Prahlad, what lessons have you learnt from your teacher? He said, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Acharam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. You know, he told him about the 9 processes of bhakti. Even his father, even though his father was a demon, he was trying his best to give him Krishna consciousness, even though he knew he wouldn't take it. And, you know, Prahlad Maharaj, he also cultivated a strong sense of detachment from material attachments. He was willing to give up, he wanted to give up all material attachment just to take shelter of Krishna. And by incorporating these lessons into our daily lives, we can deepen our connection with Krishna and navigate much more easily through the life's obstacles with grace and determination. So, yeah. That's about all I have to say. Any comments, questions? Maharaj, anything you'd like to add? Okay. Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.